Well, hello Mindscape artists. Candy here with mindscapeartist.com and Mindscape Artists Facebook group, along with the creator of Shifting from Force to Power course that I am launching as of 6/2, which is going to just be lovely for this time of that we have found ourselves upon with all of these things happening, right? Who knew that it would be such a timely thing? We've had such a shift in the universe, and the shift in the universe is definitely a signal that there is a shift taking place inside of us, right? As these shifts take place in the universe, they give us insight to where we are based on how we react. Okay? And the more distress you feel, the more out of alignment you are. Doesn't mean that you're not concerned. It doesn't mean that you're not going to be involved on some level. What it means is that if you look at your life on a micro level and you look at how important it is to remain anchored if you're in a bad relationship, if you're really sick, or if you're having financial problems, the more unhinged you become, the less able you are able to think, right? The less you're able to navigate and make the decisions that need to be made soundly, right? And what happens is a momentum takes place, and it just goes on and on and on in that direction that matches the vibration that you're at, right? So what we're going to do is we're going to make an adjustment in the direction of your higher self so that you can be anchored and make right decisions for you and think clearly and all of those things. So no matter how much you try, you cannot force anything for a sustained amount of time. It's only a matter of time before that force is going to be pushed back upon you, and you're going to constantly be met with that force. So understanding that you need to shift gears from force to power before you literally burn yourself out. Force is the equivalent of sitting in a car in park and just pressing on the accelerator and not going anywhere, right? And you're just forcing something that's not moving forward. And so that force is constantly being hit with its own energy, never making a move, and eventually you burn out the vehicle. Okay, so that is what you want to avoid in life, right? So when you look at collective force versus power, then you have to take into consideration all of the isms and all of the things that affect us on a cultural level, a political level, an economic level, right? But as Gandhi says, be the change you wish to see. You can always start within, making small incremental shifts that will literally change you. Then it will change your family. Then it will change your friends. Then it will change your associates, right? It ripples out from you, right? Those who fail to do this will burn out everything around them. Force is an initiating energy from the outside, and power is a sustainable energy from the inside, okay? So you must know the difference between the two so that you can move and shift between them as needed. It's not that you don't ever need force, right? You need force to get you going, okay? So when you wake up in the morning, right? Sometimes you need to force yourself to get out of bed. But if you don't have any power, eventually you hit a wall and you're so tired that you crash. Okay? So you need the force to help you get out of bed, but you need the power to sustain you throughout the day, if that makes sense. So what you need to understand is the difference between the energy, because force makes us feel alive initially, makes us feel like we're doing something, makes us feel like we're getting something done, right? So when we fight back, when we retaliate, when we stand up for ourselves, when we speak our mind, when we do those things, those are force. We feel like that we're doing something. It's good to initially get people's attention, but you can't stay there. And in order to get to power, you literally have to have an expanded consciousness. You have to have a clear path that's guilt-free, right? That's one of the number one things that block people from their power is guilt. And people feel guilty for things that they haven't even done, right? So if you do something wrong to someone and you feel guilty and you go make it right, guess what? You have to release that. Again, guilt is something that deals with a force. It's a force. It's an initiating energy. When you stay in guilt, you burn yourself out, right? Because you create a resolve within you when you make things right within yourself and with whomever that you're feeling guilty about, right? Once you do that, you have to allow, you have to let go. In doing that, you do that from a very expanded place, a very grateful place, where you actually are opening up the heart and you allow the power within to literally carry you past the guilt into your destiny, right? So, if not, and you remain stuck, you will allow time to pass and opportunities to pass that will allow you to be able to live your destiny. Okay? So when you think about the fact that it is in the space between the shift of force and power that we tap into the resources within us to connect the force to the power that will allow the shift of transformation to take place, right? It's almost like passing the baton, okay? So you have the force and then you have the power, but if you don't ever integrate them so that that force can take a break and integrate with that power, and that power can take you the rest of the way, right? You get tired, force kicks in, gives you a jolt, and then power takes over and carries you the rest of the way. So you think of force as something short term, you think of power as something that carries you through, okay? It is only through power, not force, that true transformation can take place. And when I speak of transformation, what I'm really talking about is a shift. A major shift. And when I say major shift, it only takes a tiny shift to create a major transformation, right? So once you truly understand that your power and practicing in that power, how important it is. See, once you understand your power and you begin to practice in it, then you're able to access it. A lot of times we run up on power accidentally and we have no clue as to how we got there. And then what happens is once we actually, the crisis is over, we go back to our normal reality, okay, to our previous familiar territory. This is where we make a mistake. Because situations come to shift our consciousness. We shift our consciousness, we tap into our power, we use our force, we tap into our power, we create this major transformation, and then our mind tells us to go back to our comfort zone, and then we lose the power source. And we're like, wow, I was so powerful when I lost that 100 pounds. I wonder what happened. Why did I gain it back? And why can't I lose it again like I did before? Wow, it was so powerful when I was a top seller in Mary Kay 20 years ago. And, now I have no clue as to where to go from there. Wow, it was so powerful when I wrote a book back in 2007, and I wrote it in like 30 days, right? I wonder why it's taken me longer to finish this book than it. Okay, so that's what I'm saying. We're able to run up on power, and we're able to shift to it, but we go back, right? So there are three things standing in your way. There's guilt, the inability to truly let go and move forward and not go backwards, right? And a distorted self-image, right? A distorted self-image. Now, all of these are a result of faulty programming. They're under the umbrella of faulty programming, right? And faulty programming just means that you have forgotten who you are, and you actually have taken on the program of something outside of you, and it's been just implanted in your subconscious so deeply you literally feel like it's you, but it's not you, right? Some of you have never met you, right? So I love when I see people meet themselves and they are like so surprised. I say this all the time. I think that's like the main thing that drives me to do the things that I like to do, because I like when people meet themselves. There's nothing more beautiful than to see a mother meet her baby for the first time. She looks at the baby and she's like, oh my God, I can't believe it. Look at it. He has feet like his dad. He has eyes like mine. You're meeting a part of yourself. But it's really phenomenal when you can meet yourself totally, not pieces of yourself, not a baby DNA version of yourself, right? Not someone who just has skin like yours and eyes like yours and feet like yours, but literally meet yourself. Now, if you have seen glimpses of yourself, but you have a hard time literally getting there, right? You are constantly going backwards to something familiar. There's something familiar that keeps pulling you away from yourself. Because once you're born into this reality, your higher self desires to propel you forward, and your past self desires to pull you backwards. So you're constantly going between moving forward, going backwards, getting closer to your higher self, moving back to your lower self or your familiar self, right? So when we see experiences out there that are repetitive, and they look familiar, things that have happened before, we immediately go back. We forget about the progress that we've made, and we go back. Not only do we go back, we may even decline, right? So it's so important to understand what it feels like in your power. Get your mind, body, and soul so rooted and grounded and anchored in that power that when you're disconnected from it, it's impossible to stay back, right? If you can go backwards and it's comfortable, you undid a transformation, which is very hard to do in a lot of cases, right? Then what you must assess is that you have an addiction to the past that literally sabotages all of your progress. When you have an addiction, that means you have a blockage in the heart, right? Something's malfunctioning here because all things are healed in the heart. The decision takes place here. You move it away from there, because if you don't, this is where addiction and fear and everything. You can have a transformation in the mind, and just as quick as you have a transformation to move forward, a memory will pop in, block it, and push you back. So as soon as you make the decision, go to the heart and say, I surrender, I release, and literally let it sit in you long enough to where your complete and total biochemistry is rooted and grounded in it. And that is where addictions are healed. Addictions are healed here, not here. Remember, whenever people are getting over addictions, they say change your path to go to work, change your path to go home, change your path. Don't go the same way, because you need to create new neural pathways in the brain, because the brain is so hardwired to doing the same thing over and over and over and over. If you go down that path, you're going to be triggered to take the detour. If you go in the grocery store and you know that aisle 2, where all of the sugar is, and the cookies and the cake mixes and the starches and all of that, and the chips, and if you know that, don't go down that aisle, right? You have not been. There was at one time where I was addicted to cornstarch. It started when I was pregnant with my daughter. And as I was addicted to it, I was trying to stop it, right? And first of all, I had to address the physical problem. And it was a lack of iron. I started taking iron. I started doing things to regulate my cycle and, do all the things that I needed to do physically to get rid of the physical addiction. But then I had to do the mental work where I literally needed to not go down that aisle. I could pass the aisle and my mouth would start watering, right? This is a real thing, right? So now I can go down that aisle and I don't even see the cornstarch, right? Because when we address things, we have to address it on a mental, physical, and spiritual level. And if you leave any of those things out, some of those things are still stuck in the past, and it'll continue to just act as a magnet and pull you back. And then you find yourself in a struggle because you feel guilty, because you forgot who you are, distorted self-image, right? Because you're anchored in the past. You see how those 3 things just popped up? You have to bring those things under subjection, and you have to look at them honestly, and you have to integrate them, and you have to gain mastery over them, and you have to make sure that you move them out of that force energy into that powerful energy, right? Who doesn't want to change and transform their self-image? I don't care how wonderful you think you are. There's always an opportunity to transform your self-image. There's always an opportunity to forgive yourself and get rid of guilt. There's always an opportunity to unanchor yourself from the past and anchor yourself within yourself, right? So, in saying all of that, you can never solve a problem with the energy of the problem. Okay? So you have to kind of come out of the problem. You see how this is working? Right? I gave you an extra nugget there. You can never solve the problem with the energy of the problem. Here's a problem. Take the problem. You need to shift the whole paradigm. Shift the energy around the problem. Shift the concept of the problem. Shift your concept in relation to the problem. Get rid of the guilt in regards to the problem, right? Unanchor it from the past. I'm giving you steps here, right? Of course, there's a method to it. What you learn is shifting from force to power. But once you unanchor that from the problem, first of all, the problem is no longer a problem, right? But you can still look at it from an objective standpoint and say, wow, that used to have so much power over me, right? And then if, for whatever reason, you bring that problem back to the past, it activates again, it brings you back into the negative or distorted self-image of yourself, the guilt. Okay, so nothing ever dies. Nothing ever dies. The only thing that happens is you shift your awareness. So if you keep going back, it's going to come alive again. You're going to be like, oh my God, I thought that was over. I thought I was, I feel so bad. I feel so terrible. No, don't do that, because what happens is you just shift it back into another reality, right? This is how you can get over your guilt. This is how you can easily come out of the distorted image of the self-image you have of yourself. This is how easily you can pull and unanchor an idea that you have from the past and shift it over to a whole nother paradigm. Okay? So, I'm interested only in helping you meet your most powerful self. Because every time I help somebody meet their most powerful self, I get deeper into my most powerful self. You see how that works, right? So I'm looking forward to seeing every last one of you in the Shifting from Force to Power class that starts June the 2nd. It's going to be live and it's going to be powerful. I want to see you there. In the meantime, don't pay attention to the media. I know it's hard, but there's so much more media in you that you have not discovered. You have barely touched the news, the good news of yourself. Why are you interested in the news out there? Now, you can be aware of it. You can even comment on it every now and then, but don't get sucked in. There's so much more power in here. Whatever's out there is strictly force. Much of it is an illusion that's attached to something that's real, which gives it the appearance of being real, false evidence, right? So you don't want to live in that fear. Come out of it now. You can't afford to stay there. The universe is shifting. It's calling for you to shift. I don't care what you see. I don't care what you hear. Once you shift, everything will change. That's a guarantee, because that's the law of nature. As above, so below. As within, so without. It's a guarantee. Technically, there's nothing out there. Technically, there's nothing out there. That's a whole nother conversation. So, click on the link below. Let me see you in the class so we can begin the shift. All right. Reconstruct the world by reconstructing your mind. I know you can do it. Bye.